So like after a point in time, like it'll be like, okay, let's change up the vibe. Let's move into something else. And I'm like, man, you're just killing it. Like, can you just stop with this right now? Welcome to Bug the Brilliant, a unique podcast where product management, software engineering, and UX design come together for a fresh take on system design. I'm your host, Shimon Johnson, product manager of Microsoft.
And I am Sid, your co-host, software engineer at Esri.
And I'm Akash, your co-host, a product designer at Pose.
In this show, we throw out all the silos and tackle real-world digital products from all angles. Each week, we improvise, iterate, and collaborate. Engineering, design, and product all in one place.
Build an app or a feature within it and talk about how it was made and why it was made the way it is. Discuss trade-offs and assumptions and share what we have learned along the way.
And you might be using these apps and products in your everyday flow. We do too. This podcast is not only about sharing our perspectives, but also learning from each other.
Every episode ends with our verdict. Bugged if it's still half-baked and needs more time in the oven, or brilliant when it's served up hot and fresh, ready for devouring.
Okay, let's move on. I'm going to play 21 Savage next, a few other artists like that.
Today, we're taking a closer look at one of Spotify's most innovative and sometimes controversial feature, AI DJ. Imagine a personal DJ who never sleeps, a digital curator that knows your taste, introduces your favorite tracks, and even tells you a bit about each artist along the way. That's what Spotify's AI DJ is all about. Using advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, AI DJ analyzes your listening habits, historical preferences, and even your mood to build a dynamic playlist just for you. But it's simply not about playing songs. It's about enhancing your entire listening experience. Well, that's what Spotify claims. AI DJ speaks to you, offering introductions, commentary, and tidbits of information that attempt to mimic the charm of a human DJ. On today's episode, we'll uncover our personal experiences using AI DJ, the good, the bad, the ugly, and understand why it was built and shipped the way it was, and how some much-needed tweaks could help significantly improve the user experience.
So, Shimon, I know you've been a Spotify user for a long time. Let's start with your experience with this feature.
Well, I just want to correct you. I've not been a Spotify user for a long time. I am an Apple fanboy through and through. I'm in the world ecosystem of Apple things. I did switch to Spotify briefly when they did launch this AI DJ feature, and then also more briefly when I was preparing for this episode. I think one of the biggest points for me that stood out was the feature discoverability. I signed up for a premium Spotify account, which clearly indicated that AI DJ would be part of that deal. So I assumed that when I open the app, I will probably see a hero button somewhere called AI DJ that would then basically launch me into the experience. Unfortunately, that was not the case for me. The moment I jumped in, I was overwhelmed with a lot of album art being thrown at my face. And I was like, okay, where is AI DJ? So I went and I hit the search bar and I typed AI DJ. And somehow AI DJ showed up as a playlist. And I was confused. I was like, wait, why is AI DJ showing up as a playlist? So I went and played the first song in it. And then I did not hear any commentary. It was just the song being played. So I was a bit confused as to why AI DJ was being, hidden in a way. I clearly understand. They want to make sure that, things are working smoothly before they make like a big, splash about it. But again, coming from somebody who's worked on Copilot previously, we have a very clear mental model that you see Copilot as a standout hero button on the ribbon of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Visio, whatever apps you're using. And I assumed that would be the similar kind of mental model that I would have to apply here to use Spotify AI DJ, but that was not the case.
I must say, I'm also an Apple fanboy. Like most designers you'll ever meet, you know that. So my experience also is a broken experience with Spotify AI DJ, but we'll come to that after Sid's experience. Sid, what did you think of this feature?
It's a completely different take. I felt like the AI DJ was pretty natural because I've been using this app for almost like a decade. And perhaps I think it comes from the intent because you don't want to open the app and just have like something thrown at you because you're opening the app with an intent to play something. But the way I think how Spotify kind of arranged this kind of a button is as you're playing, if you just want to just go off on a tangent and just listen to something from AI, I think that's how I think they kind of envision this feature. Anyways, like the voice behind the AI DJ was kind of like a very surprising experience, honestly. It has so much persona where it was trying to have a conversation after like a couple of songs. And I think it tried to pronounce most songs in many regional languages in the most appropriate way without just putting an accent or anything. It tried to pronounce very clearly. And I think it did pretty well. And one thing I like, and I think it reaches more to you because I've seen that when I start to play the AI DJ, I mean, it kind of pulled a song that I kind of listened like maybe like 10 years ago and it started from there. And as I shuffled or as I just clicked on the skip button more often than not, it would just come back and talk to me briefly and then take it off from another thread. I mean, like my only question like around this feature was, okay, what exactly this feature is built around? Is it just like a DJ or is it kind of like becoming more like a replacement for radio jockey? Because you have like a lot of these radio-based playlists. So I think that kind of intrigued me to figure out. Yeah, what do you?
Yeah, for sure. For for me, I got confused between DJ versus RJ. This felt more like a radio jockey to me, with like giving me a lot of like info about the song that I may or may not care about. But from my personal experience of, listening to DJs, well, I've not been to too many of these crazy parties. I'm not a party boy, but um, in the few experiences that I've had, I've come across DJs primarily transitioning between tracks and applying these mixes between tracks, wherein it's not a simple fade in, fade out, but it's an actual mesh between, the rhythm and the beats. And, it feels like something that's being bridged between two very different either genres of music or two very different styles. So to your point, yes, I did feel this was more like an AI RJ as opposed to an AI DJ. But I'm curious, Akash, what do you think about this from your experience of using Apple Music and then comparing it to your experience on Spotify? Like, what's it been like for you?
So I used to use Spotify a long time ago, before Apple Music started streaming. Like as a long time Apple fanboy, when Apple Music started, I was like, okay, gotta try that, move to that. Uh, but what happened was, over time with Spotify introducing all these features, I dip my toes in and off and try these features because Spotify's design is something from a designer's perspective. Spotify's design was one of the groundbreaking ways of doing streaming services. Even today, their UI is more dynamic than any other streaming service that you'd see in the market out there, right? Now, for Apple Music, when I heard about this feature, it immediately reminded me of this feature that Apple Music also does. It existed under the name Genius previously when Apple Music was iTunes. So that's where they recommend songs. Now, it's represented by an infinity on the Apple Music app. So you have three different options when you go into the UI, like shuffle, repeat, and infinite. Genius does exactly what you guys are talking about. Like brings up songs from your library, brings up newer songs that you've never listened to, kind of based on what you're listening at that particular point. More often than not, I thought it was based on my listening history, that the songs that I added to my library and the songs that felt similar to the song that I was listening to at the time. And it evolves as you listen to songs. I personally think the difference between both of these is, this natural voice that tries to keep it more human. Like Genius is just a machine learning playlist that brings up songs and creates this playlist. That's about it. There's nothing special or funky about it, unlike Spotify AI DJ. But when I used AI DJ, to me, I agree with Sid's opinion of like how natural the voice sounded. I was not expecting that either. It was very interesting, especially in a world where we have ChatGPT and all these supernatural sounding voices. That was way ahead of its time, even before ChatGPT came out. So that was my experience. I'm not super excited about this feature or pumped about this feature because I've used this before in a different context. And it's the same thing to me, except that I personally do not like this interjections of this DJ coming in and saying things. "Hey, man, I'm vibing. Please don't do this to me." So I'm not a fan of that. I wish they provide an option to turn those things off or reduce those interceptions.
Yeah, I definitely relate to its AIDJ kind of ruining the vibe. And AIDJ's favorite word is vibe, quote unquote. So like after a point in time, like it'll be like, okay, let's change up the vibe. Let's move into something else. And I'm like, man, you're just killing it. Like, can you just stop with this right now? Like the voice was good, but I feel very distant from it. Like I don't relate to it emotionally. Maybe it does a good job pronouncing hard to pronounce names like a lot of classical Indian singers for that matter. I personally felt like AI DJ felt very repetitive after a point because the script did not feel like it was giving me something new. After like every four songs, it would kind of use vibe. It was just very hard to relate to AI DJ's voice and personality, especially because, now with advanced voice mode and ChatGPT and Pi and Copilot, all sounding incredibly natural, it felt like this was like a missed opportunity. I felt like they were a little too early, but they were a little too late to also get on the generative AI train. When I think about it, I was like, what's the difference between AI DJ versus AI curated playlist? Nothing much except the interjections that keep coming through, right? And to me, it just felt like, oh, let's put lipstick on a pig and call it a day. And let's let's add interjections to AI curated playlists and now rebrand that and call it like AI DJ because hey, our shareholders want us to get on the generative AI train. And I was like, well, Spotify claims that they thought about this like years ago before generative AI was even a thing. And I get it, like these developments don't happen overnight. Like you can't like just wake up one day and be like, yo, let's do Spotify AI DJ. They acquired this company called Sonatic that was doing a lot of this synthetic voices and stuff like that. So yeah, they kind of wanted to also make sure that their investment was paying them off. So integrating Sonatic in this way with AI curated playlists was a good way to rebrand that and call it AI DJ. In terms of voice, I think like maybe some more optionalities could be better, especially because when you look at what Apple has done with one of their accessibility features, is that Apple is able to use your voice. Like it's basically going to ask you to read like some 15, 20 phrases, random phrases. It uses on device machine learning and uses your voice to generate a synthetic voice track. Now, does that sound as natural as AI DJ does today? Heck no, it does not sound anywhere close to that. But is there potential for it to sound like that in the future? Obviously, very much so.
Now, you talk about personalizing a voice at what Apple's trying to do. Sid, do you have any thoughts on what if Spotify has to do something about this in terms of personalization? What kind of challenges do you think they might be seeing?
I mean, more so, I think in terms of challenges, I think they are technically equipped. I feel like most of my questions are around like, what is the psychology behind this feature? Because I think Shimon kind of pointed out it should be termed as AI RJ instead of an AI DJ. Rightly so, because it has a full sound playback, unlike a DJ where you kind of mix or blend. So the transition I kind of felt to it was not very smooth because the audio, like the song goes from start to finish. There is a pause, like a second or two, and then the next song kind of kicks in. So it doesn't feel like a DJ. So it's like so. And the other thing I didn't like, honestly, is like the manual switching because you have this skip button that you have to keep tapping if you don't like the song. So in a conventional DJ, you don't do that. Like you're just vibing with the song and that's it. The song would end. I think based on the temperature of the crowd, and you kind of like up the music or down the music. It's completely on a person, the human aspect of it to do it. But I kind of doubt like how a machine would make it, at the moment dynamically. So that's one of the challenges I kind of feel. And same thing, I just want to echo one more point that Shimon kind of mentioned. There's like too many frequent interruptions. I'm not a big fan of it because you're kind of like in a flow, maybe like an hour deep, and you don't want too many interruptions. So I think they could just come up with something probably like train their AI DJ to like, have like a minimal checkup rather than just again try to cut the flow of the song. And commentary could be like minimized and have like a smarter skip functionality. I think that would be a lot better than just having to tap the buttons. And one suggestion I have for this is like, suggest a starting point. Like, I mean, you could have a gaming playlist and you want to build your DJ probably from that point, just like the infinity feature that Apple has, where you just kind of like start from there and it will just kind of like recommend song based on that particular genre. I think like Spotify also does it, but again, it's pretty random. It will not like keep to its same thing. It will try to pull out different things and it will just kind of like mess up the flow. In regards to how they might have done it or how they could have implemented, probably there are like a lot of these collaborative filtering techniques that they have used behind the scenes to probably achieve this. And look at like the group of people around a certain region listening to similar kind of songs and probably like throw recommendations off of it. Or it could be purely content based, which is like usually the starting point. You listen to a particular genre and kind of like it builds on that. This is not an easy problem to solve. I'm like from a designer's take, what do you think about this?
I have a lot of thoughts in general about all these things because you made an interesting point where, like, what does a DJ really mean when you're at a party? You want songs to transition seamlessly, maintain that vibe, and make things super nice. This has been an idea like on my mind for a long time because every single time we have a party, somebody has to go change them, but you can never change the song at the right moment. You will always end up listening to the parts that nobody likes and nobody wants to, and then you'll shift to a song at the wrong time and miss the high parts of it, right? So going to the design and UX part of things, to me, something I'm you know I'm not sure how I feel about is you have this entire nav playing screen where you have your album art and all the info, and you scroll further down, you have lyrics and all that. That's in a typical Spotify UI. Then you have this one button at the bottom of it that you tap, and it brings up this Spotify AI DJ, which looks exactly the same. But instead of an album art, you have this animated circle that is a AI DJ's like, avatar, you could say. I it's kind of I'm torn between that. Is this a good idea to do it that way, or is there a better way to do it? Like how Shimon was saying, he expected it to be a button that's like jumping out at you and like inviting you to interact with it, rather than having something that's like tucked away in one corner of the screen. I probably would have done differently. Bring it and make it more omnipresent. That's listening to or looking at all the things you're doing and then adjusting itself dynamically.
Understood. So it's like context aware of like whatever screen you are on, and it's just there as opposed to having one action or one hero button and then moving into that screen. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I think a lot of like generative AI models are kind of moving on to, as we move into this agentic era of like Gen AI, a lot of them, especially like Google Gemini Flash, I think is kind of doing this where, it's able to look at your screen and kind of take a guess at what you might like and what you might not. I think even ChatGPT is doing something like this. Yeah, I definitely like the presence of, an omnipresent kind of AI that takes into context what I'm looking and what I'm doing. But then it again raises questions on privacy, right? Like, how much is too much? Like, how far can I go? I'm probably not comfortable with, AI DJ looking at the things that I'm looking at simultaneously. So I do see why they kind of tucked it away. Perceptions across geographies change. Some people relate to the person speaking, Xavier. He's the person behind the actual modeled voice out there. So I feel like it's such a personalized thing that they didn't want to make it front and center because, there's always this thing that this might not work the way we anticipated it to. So what we could do is we could kind of be a little sneaky about it, and we could just like, make it available on our app, but not make it easily discoverable. And I think like that was a very purpose driven decision that they had made. And I stand by it as somebody who also works on similar kind of features. When we're launching a new feature like this that we think may or may not, hit the goals, we tend to tuck them away or drown them one level below the menu or like in a sub menu or something. And I think like it's a very strategic decision that Spotify made. So I don't want to give them shit just for the sake of giving them shit. I think it's a very well thought out problem. And definitely, I'm pretty sure, like, as they build more maturity into the feature, as they build, more kind of insight into how people are using those features, AIDJ it will end up becoming like a front and centered kind of feature out there.
I was listening to some of the podcasts that obviously both of you probably listened to the same episodes as well about this AIDJ. They did talk about a lot of user testing they've done with this UI and how users responded to those things. I'm certain as a designer who relies on user research to understand perspectives, because a lot of times, no matter how strong your gut instinct says as a designer or a product manager or a software developer, sometimes we end up designing those things for ourselves than the market that we're catering to. So I'm pretty certain that Spotify's design team or like the product team explored all the options and landed on this one.
We're almost into the last segment. What do you guys think? Is it a bug or is it a brilliant feature?
Starting with me, I think it's a brilliant feature. I will give it a thumbs up based on my experiences with it. It's thoughtful. I think it opened gates for a lot of new features. So yeah, I voted brilliant.
I also want to say that as product builders, the three of us, we do understand the effort that goes behind actually shipping something like this. So I just want to reiterate, we're not calling it a failure. It's just bug, which means that it's not achieved the maturity that it needs to. I would not vote this as a brilliant feature because it feels like a half-baked GenAI product that people just threw out to make sure that they got on the AI hype train and they kept their stakeholders and shareholders happy. I think like the MVP planning, so MVP is minimum viable product for those of y'all who don't know. It's basically a set of table stakes requirements that the product or the feature needs to have. I felt like it missed a few of these table stakes requirements. The first is the explicit feedback mechanism to drive like better recommendations. Like what if I'm listening to, I don't know, some EDM track and then out of nowhere, Billie Eilish pops up. Other than, just having a button down there that just resets AIDJ, I would like to actually have a thumbs up or a thumbs down button. And this is like very general kind of approach that most Gen AI products are taking, because we do explicitly state that, this is all produced by AI, so this might be inappropriate and we would like for you to flag or agree or disagree to it. So a simple thumbs up or a thumbs down would kind of be something that I see would help drive better recommendations as opposed to just resetting AIDJ every time you don't like a song.
It's almost like you're recommending this podcast to people with a thumbs up recommendation.
Well, I hope we get thumbs ups. Coming back to, why I would not rate it brilliant at this point in time is also the fact that I would like a simple toggle, like a clear, simple toggle of, do I want commentary? How much do I want commentary? Do I want very minimal commentary? Do I want a lot of commentary? So like a sliding scale or something, or like a quick toggle would be something good. Again, this now Spotify product managers and designers and engineers might argue that this is not a P0, this is a P1. So it's not a must have, it's a good to have. But I think with such a generative AI experience that you're putting out there, I think you should definitely give a lot more granular control. And if you have not built that granular control in or have not taken the time to look into it, then you should delay the launch and wait to integrate all of that in to make sure that it's not a half-baked product that you've thrown out there. And finally, one thing that I have been noticing that Apple Music does really well is inclusion of haptics feedback based on the music's rhythm and beat. So that way, I feel like we're opening this experience not just to people who can listen and can hear, but also to people who are deaf, hard of hearing. We could definitely cater to more such people if Spotify included that haptic feedback feature. For people who require that, I think it would be like a good thing. And I think like that's where like I felt like it was like a table stakes miss. And I think Spotify can like kind of play into that and just make sure that it's a more inclusive experience for people across the spectrum.
Yeah,
From me, it's bugged at this point. It can bake a little more.
Well, I feel like no, where the AI DJ did really well is it has a very natural and warm AI voice. I think that kind of blew me when I started using this feature. It comes second to none. And also in terms of personalization, I think it does really, really well. I think like in terms of the development, they kind of nailed it as to, how this product should be. But I also have like certain concerns. It kind of feels like very repetitive, the commentary and the interruptions. I just want to enjoy the flow. I don't want to be interrupted. If it's like a DJ, I want it to be felt like a DJ and not like a playlist. I think this is where I feel like it's a solution, but it's not solving the problem that it was intended for. One missing piece I kind of feel is like implementing a two-way interaction mechanism to match music with a user's current mood, because that is the missing piece. I think this feature is bugged for me.
So with that, I think we are towards the end of this, and we all have our opinions. And I learned a lot from talking to both of you about AI DJ. You have great thoughts and experiences, especially given your focus and disciplines.
Likewise, Akash, likewise, Sid. I just want to conclude with one thing. Like, I mean, if any Spotify product manager, engineer, or designer is listening to this, yes, this is probably going to be one of the most obvious things, but like, I would like to talk to AI DJ. Like, maybe that helps me build some rapport with AI DJ as opposed to AI DJ just talking to me. So, intent driven AI DJ would be much better as opposed to this guesstimating AI DJ that it's kind of trying to guess and figure out. Like, be explicit with what you want it for, and I think it would do really well. Like in the next iteration of it, I'm pretty sure Spotify is not going to like shelf this feature. Like it's going to be there. It's going to bake, and I hope for it to bake longer. And yeah, the proof is going to be in the pudding when we try it the next time.
Well, just to add to what Shimon said, if there's any Spotify designer, product manager, or software engineer listening to this, we would like to talk to you too and learn about your experiences and learn more about how you did this.
Yeah, I think I have something for the devs out there. Hey, if you're looking for a developer, I'm
I'm here as well, just in case. I'm ready to move to Europe as well if you need me to. And I think with that, we're almost at time. Akash said, thank you for being wonderful hosts along with me and, diving deep into Spotify. Listeners, if you have feedback for us, feel free to drop them in the comments, and have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Be safe. Take care. Bye.